Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
We have, I think we're 38th now in interest, and we should be.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being part of the show. Whoa. It was tough getting here, getting this stuff out. I just got through processing the last video. There's so much happening, folks. There is so much happening. Welcome aboard to the house. Michael Rudnin, first one in the house from Brooklyn, New York. We also have in the house Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. Lisa Blair from Atlanta, Georgia. Jacqueline Campisi, or Residente, Profesora, the teacher here in Katy, Texas. Good afternoon. We also have Joe. Where have you been? We've missed you. Good afternoon. Our beautiful Joe from Los Angeles, California. Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you for being here. Mara, we missed the first few on Substack, but we've got Madeline Moldon Mac from Appalachia. You hear me talk about Appalachia a lot. Pamela Bowen, Susie Renard, Adam W. How you doing, Adam? Adam is from Pittsburgh, close to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Will Nickerson, welcome aboard. Leave the Bearcat from Austin, Texas. May Wood from Long Beach, California. Welcome, everybody. We have a big show for you today. First of all, let's go ahead and start. Michael said he's watching from Twitch. All right, Michael, you like Twitch? I like Twitch too. So, good streamer, very good streamer. Look, before we get started, let's talk about Iran. Donald Trump wants, Netanyahu, because Netanyahu was fairly successful in hitting a few targets in Iran, and Donald Trump loves to win. Well, Donald Trump is actually seeking to do something there. But beforehand, let me welcome as well Barbara Wiltz from Michigan, Upper Peninsula, as well as Harry Denson from Missouri City, in the Houston metropolitan area. Roosevelt Thomas, PR, welcome aboard. All right, let's get busy. Here's the deal. Donald Trump noticed that even though he didn't want Israel to go into Iran, he noticed that, wow, it looked like Bibi was successful in knocking out a few things. He knocked out a lot of their air defense and knocked out a lot of their stuff, got a few of their nuclear stuff knocked out. So he is thinking that this may be a successful mission. Remember 2002, guys? It's always easy to bomb stuff up in the beginning until you have to then get things done, right? So he thinks it's okay. So we have AIPAC, according to, I heard this while I was on the stepper with Mr. Tom Hartman, that AIPAC has the senators and the congressmen and the congresswomen. Their phones are being lit up. Advising these senators and congresspersons to go ahead and support the president in bombing the holy crap out of Iran and sending that 30,000 pound bunker buster that is good for 200 feet deep into Iran. So now Donald Trump, who always claimed he doesn't want war, is warming to the idea. And all the indications he's given, Iran can't have a nuclear bomb. Iran can't have a nuclear bomb. Even though the treaty that Obama signed with Iran pretty much had them, under control and under test, etc. And Donald Trump is the one who screwed that up. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the situation that we are. Donald Trump breaks things and then try to fix them and never fixes them correctly. But this got to me. I want you to listen to him answer this reporter. This simply got me upset, and I'll explain after we get back. Check this out, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Both here and abroad. So we're not only concerned about the U.S. potentially getting involved in another conflict in the Middle East, but worry about the potential for retaliation here at home.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get involved either, but I've been saying for 20 years, maybe longer, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I've been saying it for a long time. And I think they were a few weeks away from having one. And they had to sign a document. I think they wish they signed it now. It was a fair deal. And now it's a harder thing to sign. It's a lot of water over the dam. But, it's very, I say it very simply. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Too much devastation. And they'd use it. I believe they'd use it. Others won't use it, but I believe they'd use it. So that's it. It's very simple as far as I'm concerned. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
Okay. Listen, neither Israel or the United States has the right to talk about anybody really killing people or have the right to tell anybody, in my humble opinion, that they shouldn't have a bomb. So let's be clear here. Donald Trump in that little short clip just said, "Oh, we know they'll use it. We know they'll use it." Why? Are you projecting? Let's be clear here. The people that we normally consider pariahs, right? The countries that we consider pariahs, North Korea, Russia, China, they all have the nuclear bomb. Friends of ours, India, Israel, purportedly Brazil, but we're not so sure about Brazil, and they also have the nuclear bomb. We also have France, the United Kingdom. They also have the nuclear bomb. Wait a minute, Germany, maybe? Well, of course, Germany has the technological expertise to build it. They won't tell you that they've had it. Actually, they have a World War II past that they don't want to relive. Okay? Now, we take a look at Pakistan. For or not for, we never know where Pakistan is with regards to the United States government. And then we have the United States with a large contingent of nuclear weapons. Of all those countries, all of them have been in conflicts. All of them have had their skirmishes. All of them have had their wars, etc. Not one of those countries that have developed nuclear bombs have used it, except the United States of America. So let's be clear here. We don't have the right or the morality to go ahead and tell some country, we don't want you to have a nuclear bomb because you will use it. The only country that we know, because past is prologue. Past is prologue. The only country we know that has the nuclear bomb and has actually used it on human beings is the United States of America. That is something that so many people have not allowed themselves to think about, because it's hurtful to believe that we consider ourselves the bastion of democracy. We consider ourselves the bastion of morality. We consider ourselves all these things. But again, the only country that has killed hundreds of thousands of people with an atomic bomb, with a nuclear bomb, is the United States. And all the other people that we fear would get the device, they have not used it. Okay? And Eric, it doesn't matter when it was or whatever. The only country we know has the gall, the nerve, the pelotas to use the bomb is the United States. And how do we know that? Because they did it. We did it. That's the only way we know that. No other country has. And when it comes to Israel and what Israel has done, we know that Israel has within its own morality to flatten square miles of buildings where women and children and innocent civilians are living, under the pretext that behind those civilians are terrorists? Well, if you are in a mall, if you have a terrorist in a mall, in an American mall, and that American mall has 10,000 people in it, and you know there are 50 terrorists in that building, do you think the American Air Force will drop a bomb in that building and kill those civilians? No, they won't, because they're Americans. We have morals towards Americans, so we wouldn't do it. But we turn a blind eye that Israel can use, that all those build that if you go ahead and look at the Gaza Strip, miles and miles of pulverized concrete with human beings under it, dead, muertos, fallecidos. And we say, well, you know, what they are doing is they're hiding that these people, the terrorists are using them as human shields. Ask yourself, again, we have to be intellectually honest. Ask yourself, if 50 killers are in a mall in America and the police officers surround that mall, will they gun down the thousands of civilians to get to those 50 terrorists or 50 thieves or 50 killers? They would never do that. But here is the deal. We know that our morality here in America, our military political morality in America, will do that in countries that we don't consider as human as we are. That is why when we were going in to get Manuel Antonio Noriega, which we illegally captured, but America claimed they needed to get Manuel Antonio Noriega. That's why they didn't mind bombing Chorrillo in Panama. Bombed the holy crap out of Chorrillo, where only civilians live, because the Cuartel Nacional, that's the Noriega headquarters, was there. So they bombed the whole thing, not only the Cuartel, but the entire surrounding neighborhood. It was bombed. And they claim about 1,000 people. Wikipedia claim, I think, 4,000 people. We know it because we know about Chorrillo. It was at least 10,000 people that were dead in there. And you never know about a lot of it because a lot of the footage, etc., was thrown away and holes dug. They're buried underground somewhere. So it was okay. It was okay to bomb human beings in Panama. When it came to Grenada, the same things. We are only concerned about certain people's lives. Think about all the places we bombed. When we bombed Iraq and we indiscriminately bombed areas where we know civilians are, and we bombed the holy crap out of them. And in the United States, you never saw the bones. You never saw the cracked skulls. You never saw the eyeballs coming out of people's socket as the concrete compressed their brains. You never saw that on American TV. But guess who saw that, people? All around the world, in newspapers, all around the world, on TV. People saw what our United States bomb did to innocent human beings in Iraq. They saw what happened to innocent human beings in Panama. They saw what happened to innocent human beings in Grenada. They saw what happened to innocent human beings in all these areas. And then we come back to the United States, and so often these politicians like to say they hate us because of our freedom. They don't hate Americans. Americans are loved around the world. American culture is loved around the world. I can tell you because I am from Panama, and even as we blew the crap out of Chorrillo and Colon, you go to Colon today, you go to Chorrillo today, and the American people, the American folks are still held in high regards, but the government, it's a different story. You go in, we have the Panama Canal now, and Donald Trump send troops to Panama, trying to bully them into saying, oh, you really don't have sovereignty over that canal. Even though it's yours, you don't have sovereignty. You gave the Chinese too much opportunity to build ports in Panama. Folks, if we keep up, you know how empires fall? Empires fall for overreach. Empire falls because they forget what that shining star is. They forget about that shining star. I want you guys to think about that. There are two superpowers in the world right now. Two superpowers. Don't be fooled in thinking that we are the indispensable power. There are two superpowers. Superpower in AI, the United States and China. Superpower in manufacturing, actually it's China. Superpower in the military, the United States and China, and to some extent, Russia and the European Union. Okay? Those are the superpower, military superpower, the AI superpower, etc. But we are not alone, nor are we an island. But what China has done as opposed to America, China is out there in every country in the world, whether they agree with their political stance or not, making deals, approaching them with some level of dignity. I don't care about your economic system if we can make an economic deal. I don't care about your political system if we can make an economic deal. And what has that done? They're in Jamaica. They're in Panama. They're in Costa Rica. They're in Chile. They're in Venezuela. They're everywhere building. We are everywhere bombing stuff. Now Trump wants to go into Iran and bomb. I want to ask you, and Trump comes in, and what's the first agency he screws and he gets rid of and he defunds? USAID. That is the one agency in America that projects American goodwill around the world. Feed the hungry, and with those big things of wheat and peanut butter and stuff from our farmers that says, you know what? This brought to you by the farmers of America. This brought to you by the United States of America. Goodwill. And that's what it's all about. Anyway, no, Lee Grant, China is not trying to recolonize Africa. That's the misnomer. I suggest that you read up about Burkina Faso and France versus China and Burkina Faso, China, and all these other African countries. And look, every country looks out for themselves, but every country doesn't look out, but America looks out only for itself and one ally. It's important that we see this and we elect people who understands what I'm talking about, because we are falling off the cliff so fast. And I'm telling you, as an immigrant to this country, as a naturalized American citizen who love this country, watching what this country is doing right now, watching how people in this country have elected a xenophobic, racist, dumb buffoon. Being our representative around the world is so disconcerting. And yes, the U.S. is going after Traore, Adam W. Many that possess a semblance of empathy were walking around in sheer confusion and terror to see how many Americans did not even care to read the news about a nuclear weapon being dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. I have had relatives long since passed tell me that nobody cared about the death toll. It is amazing. Eric Prince has been spending a lot of time in Africa. Look, folks, we have to wake up to the stuff. But one of the problems that we have is that our media is so terrible. One of the reasons Americans are so ill-informed about what happens, right, is Americans would be more empathetic if the news was presented to them in a fact-based manner and how it affects them in the long run. Like USAID. What Elon Musk and Trump did to USAID, the immediate effect is not going to be known right away. But over time, people are going to know exactly what happened. And all of us are going to pay the price, because we are going to lose the goodwill from the rest of the world, as we're losing in many places. And China, unlike us, is gaining goodwill around the world, around the entire world. And goodwill is so much better. Bruce said, sad implication, the Chorrillo neighborhood was black. Where were you in 89? In 89, I was in Houston. And I knew when the attack was coming, because a friend of mine from Panama, a naturalized American citizen, he's in the CIA. He was with the CIA portion of the military. And he called me and told me to make my people aware that it was going down that day. So I made a few calls to Panama when the raid was coming. But my father, the raid was not, my father long lived. He died a few years ago. Man, that still hurts. My father, I remember I was out of touch with him for about 4 or 5 days before we could get back in touch. And I remember when we finally got in touch, he said, you should have seen me running around the house, because all you hear, we live about, I'll say about 4 miles from the cuartel in Colon. We're on the Atlantic side. And he said those I think it was a Black Hawk helicopters flying on top of Arco Iris, Rainbow City. And they were flying over his house. And he said you just hear the missiles going out of the helicopters. Shoo, shoo, and, just going from there into the cuartel, directed missiles. And then he spoke about the 15 pisos in downtown Colon, where my cousin lived. And on the 15th floor, they claimed that people were shooting at what? Okay, they can't see. But you know what they were doing? They were testing out the stealth fighter in Colon. The stealth fighter. Remember, that was 1989. It's a shame what folks do. You see, we are not human beings. You have to remember that. We are not human, They wouldn't invade a mall in St. Paul, but it will blow the crap out of a building in Colon, Panama. So let's remember these things before you jump on your high horse and you're ready to invade Iran. Iran is made up of a whole millions and millions of good people. And Iran made a change not because it wanted to make a change. Iran made a change because when they decided to nationalize their oil industry, that was the unforgivable sin for Great Britain and the United States of America. How dare you want to control your own resources? And in that process, we made Iran, which was a damn good friend of the United States, we made Iran a pariah. And we have never forgiven them for that. Same thing with Haiti. Haiti had the nerve to liberate itself from France. And for that, they've made them the pariah of the Caribbean. And Haiti had to pay France for the liberation, for their own liberation. Haiti had, you see, a lot of this is not taught in school. The Haiti had to pay for the slaves that they liberated. Think about that. Think about what Westernism means to so many folk. They had to pay for the freedom of the Haitians, and they had to make an example out of Haiti. How dare you? We could make America see that you were liberating black folks like that in Haiti. Look up these histories, my brothers and my sisters, because all of this ties in together with all the world events that we're looking at. Okay, enough of international politics. Iran, we better not invade Iran because it will be another Iraq. And remember, they're building it up the same way. Weapons of mass destruction, all these things. Iran can't have the atomic bomb or the nuclear bomb. Remember, again, the only country to ever use the nuclear bomb, the United States. Not too many countries other than Russia, the United States, and Israel has no problem decimating cities with innocent civilians in those cities. You take a look around all the conflicts of the world and take a look at where you have the most decimation and see what countries are responsible for said decimation. All right, local politics now, my brothers and sisters. Jasmine Crockett, last night, she did a piece that I thought I needed to get out, and I'm going to get out. But before I do the Jasmine Crockett one, I want to play you a lying Republican who thinks his people are simply stupid. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side. Republican politicians think that the people who follow them are stupid. They also make the assumption that you don't read, that you can't read, and that you can't comprehend. My question to you is not to our progressive base, but to our MAGA base, to a Republican base. Will you allow these guys to continue to assume you are not very smart? Tim Scott comes out and he points out that, or he tries to make the point that the tax cuts that Donald Trump passed in 2017 actually generated more revenues because of this tax cut. He also tries to give the implication that tax cuts throughout our history brought more revenue to the United States government, as opposed to the natural progression of revenue as a market expands. And the reality is tax cuts do not give more revenue than they cost, number one. And number two, the multiplier, that which creates a successful economy, is not generated by tax cuts. It's not generated on the supply side. It is generated on the demand side. I give every American more money, okay? In other words, I raise your wages. I make sure that you have more money in your pocket. You create the demand by spending that money. When the factories see that you need more product, they'll make more product. On the supply side, when you give rich people money in the form of a tax cut, they decide just maybe we will manufacture a product, or maybe we'll just stuff this money in the Cayman Islands. It's not rocket science, and the math explains it. You can look at the charts. When Republicans are in power and give tax cuts, the budget deficit balloons and the amount of the economic growth is stunted. This is not out of my mouth. This is what the data tells you. Now, Tim Scott, I want you to listen to him because he believes or not, he knows better, but he has no problems lying to those of you who listen to him. But you know what? Lawrence O'Donnell and the professor, the historian, really got him taken care of. Ornstein knows what he's talking about. Let's listen to this and then take it on the other side.
You can try, but you're going to find it's very hard to be more wrong than Republican Senator Tim Scott.
In 2017, the CBO said the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act would increase the deficit and the debt by trillions of dollars. Well, what happened? They were wrong. Now, this is not surprising. They were wrong on the Mellon tax cuts in the 1930s. They were wrong on the Kennedy tax cuts in the 1960s. They were wrong on the Reagan tax cuts in the 1980s. When have they been right? I don't know either. But what I can tell you, 2017 TCJA produced a 3% increase in revenues in 2018 and another 3% in 2019. Why? Because the Laffer curve is right. If you lower taxes, you increase production, and that means more revenues for the government. It always has worked. I think it always will work. CBO, wrong then, wrong now.
And Norm Ornstein is back with us. And Norm, I know CBO, Congressional Budget Office, didn't exist until 1974. So the whole thing about the 1920s tax cuts and the 1960s tax cuts, what else might the senator have gotten wrong there?
Well, the idea that the 2017 tax cuts increased revenue, which of course has been a fallacy that we've seen with every set of these tax cuts all along the way. I have to tell you, Lawrence, watching that, I was a consultant on Veep for several seasons. If Jonah Ryan, who anybody who watched Veep remembers, had seen that, he would have said, how dumb can anybody be? But this is now par for the course. It's lying about what's in the bill. It's, of course, Tim Scott's colleagues all saying, along with Donald Trump, we're not going to cut anybody off of Medicaid when we know that the bill, whether it's the one that the House passed or the one that the Senate is now tinkering with, is going to cut millions of people off the rolls, and they're probably going to do a worse job of it, or a tougher job in the Senate itself. All of the things that they've discussed, where the tax cuts are going to affect people, we know now from all of the best and objective analyses. And the CBO, by the way, the director of it, is somebody I know well, a longtime Republican who served as an assistant Treasury secretary in the Bush administration. The idea that they're spinning things to benefit Democrats is itself farcical. What we know is that they can call this the big, beautiful bill, but that's like calling Hannibal Lecter the big, beautiful guy.
The big budget bills like this are always, I think, hard to follow for people out there, even trying to follow the news. And one of the things that's so striking about this is that there's very, very powerful polling on it. It has a 64% unfavorable. And that's actually hard to get. It's hard to get a 64% opinion about legislation as big and bulky and complex as this.
And, the other part of this that is so striking is that the people who will be hurt the most if any version of this bill passes are the Republicans' constituents. The first ones hurt by the Medicaid cuts, along with working and poor Americans, are rural hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
We know hundreds of rural hospitals will be closed as a consequence. They can't get by without the revenues from Medicaid. The tax cuts are going to add a burden, along with whatever tariffs we finally get in this bizarre process, are a burden on working class and poor Americans, all to benefit ginormous tax cuts for the wealthiest among us. It's no wonder that people, even if they don't know much in the details about this, understand that this is a destructive bill. And while we have differences between the House and Senate Republicans and no Democrats involved in any way, at some point they're going to have to pass something. We have a debt ceiling and default possibility looming sometime in the next few months. We could get a government shutdown before October 1. So they're going to have to do something. And there is nothing that suggests that what they're going to do is going to be constructive for the vast majority of Americans.
And these Republicans are going to vote in this bill on a huge increase in not just the debt, but the debt ceiling. They're going to vastly expand how much the debt can go up even beyond this bill.
That's one area where they're going to have to be relatively honest. What we know is from the Congressional Budget Office, from all of the best forecasters at universities and elsewhere, we're talking multiple trillions in increases in the debt that's already very high. And we also know if you add in the extra costs that come because interest rates inevitably are going to go up. They're going to go up because of tariffs. They're going to go up because we're not going to be able to attract investment from abroad in the dollar or in America. And that itself adds even more to the debt burden. It's a multiplying factor. And, for people who have portrayed themselves, and often our media, a hobby horse of yours and mine, keep calling them fiscal conservatives. They are exactly the opposite of fiscal conservatives. They are fiscal radicals.
Folks, it is time for us to stop allowing these guys to lie and get away with it. They lie, they put some stuff out, and, everybody eventually finds out it's a lie, and then they get a break. I think it is time for us to frame them as liars. We need to stamp them. We need to put a scarlet letter on them so that at no point is their word considered valid. And the mainstream media has to do its part. This guy comes out and lies on air. He should have access to the air. You shouldn't be seeking liars to go on air. You should be looking for people who come and defend their point of view. I mean, the people who want tax cuts for the rich should come out and defend why they want tax cuts for the rich, because those are the people who supply them with their funds. These are the people they think they honestly believe the rich are better people than their base. Come out and honestly say it. Don't lie to the base and then have them frustrated about who is to blame for their demise. And likewise, a direct message to MAGA, a direct message to conservative working class people, a direct message to poor people who have a tendency to vote for Republicans and conservatives. They are lying to you. They don't think you have much upstairs. They don't think you have the ability to critically think. And because of that, they continue to harm you day in and day out. When you vote for these guys, you remember what you're doing is you are voting to keep yourself poor, to keep your wages down, and to ensure that your wealth goes to those few at the top. That's not a statement. That's not a hollow statement. That is a statement of fact that if you choose to critically think and if you choose to research, you will come out with exactly what I just said. Absolutely so, folks. Absolutely so. I have one last video. This one is with Jasmine Crockett. I use her as a tease to go ahead and put this particular segment up. I want you to listen to this one in detail. This is important, especially if you're living in a rural area. Folks in rural areas, we have to get with the program, folks. We have to get with the program. Representative Jasmine Crockett, Democrat of Texas, appeared on Chris Hayes' show, All In. And interestingly, Chris Hayes, she went on to discuss the big, beautiful bill, right? The one big, beautiful bill that really is a big, ugly bill, a bill that really harms most Americans. after going through quite a bit, Chris Hayes pointed out something interesting. And he asked her, where is the hospital lobby? To which Crockett didn't quite have an answer. But she made the point that we don't know where the hospital lobby is, but the reality is this big bad bill, also known as the big beautiful bill by Trump himself, would actually cause a lot of hospitals, mostly in red states, mostly in rural areas, to close. Listen to this and then we'll take it on the other side, because while she didn't have the answer, I can give you the answer empirically. Let's listen to this and we'll take it on the other side.
When I used to cover Congress day in, day out, was that the hospitals were big interest groups.
They are.
They will drop money on your head if they don't like it. They will be up in your office.
Yes.
Where are the hospitals? Honestly, it's wild to me that they have not shown up in a big way.
I don't know.
To fight this bill.
I have no idea. I mean, it's kind of like you saw the farmers, right? Like when we were going through that like continuing resolution, the farmers were like, wait a minute. Like they showed up, like the Farm Bureau was like, we are here, right? And so it is odd because the hospital lobby is a really big lobby. And a lot of people probably think of lobbies and they think, oh, you're going to be the antithesis of me. But when you're talking about rural America, like I lived in East Texas, let me tell you, hospitals are shutting down. And in rural America, you don't have as many providers either. And so literally, if you have this specialized cancer, you can't stay at home. You've got to go somewhere else because there's no one that knows about the help that you need. So it is really odd. And I tell you this, that there's going to be more hurt that comes to red states than blue states. Blue states can actually take in a lot of this, not to say that they should and not to say that it's right, but like it will be
disproportionately red states will get hurt by the Medicaid in both these versions.
Yes, absolutely.
Chris Hayes is right to ask. During the Obamacare debate, the hospital lobby was deep in it. In fact, a lot of the bad pieces of that bill really came to pass because the hospital lobby didn't want certain things done, etc., because they figured it would affect their bottom line. But somehow they are not very concerned about the big, bad, beautiful bill. Why is it? And, as I rack my mind, you have to realize what's the purpose of this bill. The purpose of this bill is to take away, to find ways to give the wealthy, the corporations, the big folks, a huge tax cut. And the way to do that is to take away a lot of the benefits from middle class, working class, and poor Americans. So again, the question is, hospitals. There are a lot of hospitals that are going to be closed in rural areas. There are a lot of hospitals that are going to be closed in red states. Why aren't you out there fighting to say, no, Mr. President, this is going to hurt us? You have to realize it. These hospitals in rural areas, they don't care about those small town doctors. They don't care about those small town nurses. In fact, the way they feel, if those hospitals close, there'll be a lot of room for these people to work in the cities. There'll be a lot of places for these people to work in the centers where the profit really is. You see, when you have these rural hospitals, they run on a shoestring budget with small profit margins, if any. So it's really there as a service because you want to have a body there to go ahead and bring, for all the poor people that are living there. But again, if a large percentage of these people are giving you Medicaid money and the big hospitals can get Medicaid money and other money, they would look and say, well, you know what? We get a big tax cut, and that big tax cut is way more in the aggregate than what profit these rural hospitals will make anyway. So why fight the bill? Let's make the big city hospitals and the satellites in the big cities more profitable, and to hell with the rural hospitals. So we constantly screw the folks in rural areas, and by implication, we screw the red states. But the only way you get to screw the red states if you fool the red states, because they are the ones who support the people who are going to screw them, because their leaders had never, ever cared about them. That is why in Texas, and I repeat this ad nauseum, in Texas where for the first 3 years of the Affordable Care Act, people could get Medicaid. The state paid zero, and all these people would get insured. But the state of Texas said no. Likewise, after 3 years, they could get the Medicaid for 10%. In other words, the government would pay 90% of the bill, and Texas would be responsible for just 10%, small amount. And to the Texas citizens, Texas said, the Republican Texas legislature say, no, I'd rather you die than to have to pay 10% more in your health care. And this goes on and on and on with policy and policy and policy. They cut SNAP. They cut support for food banks. And what happens? Who does that hurt? Our brothers and sisters in West Virginia, who are very, very, very dependent on food banks in a lot of these areas in Appalachia. But they don't care. They have, even before the big bad bill, even during the time that Obamacare was coming into effect, even the times when the Inflation Reduction Act was coming into play, they never cared about you. The Democrats made sure to put these factories, the green factories and green policies in red states, hoping that red state politicians would say, wait a minute, if these green energy programs are in our states, then we can't really get rid of it because it'll hurt our people. But what does the big bad bill do? The big bad bill in the House version just about drops it to zero almost immediately. The Senate is trying to do a little bit of negotiation, but again, it harms their own people in order to give the money to the wealthy. It is essential that you see this, folks, as they have you hoodwinked on social issues like abortion and 10 commandments and go deport the immigrants and all these things. As they work on all of that to distract you, they're there taking your money. They're there taking your wealth. They're there taking your livelihood. They never, ever cared about you. They never even made an attempt to care about you. But somehow you still vote for them. You've got the evidence, folks, and it's going to come to pass. If this bill goes through, the rural areas are going to feel the extensive pain first. And those doctors that are going to leave those closed hospitals, they'll have jobs. They'll be driving back to the city. And the city folks, the folks that they tell you to fear, they'll have good health care because they'll have even more doctors coming in from the rural areas after those hospitals close. They'll have more nurses from the rural areas after those hospitals close. There's one industry that you'll have some people there, but it's going to make you poorer. The ambulance services will stay in the rural areas because they'll have to transport you 100 miles to the hospital. And then when you get your loved one in accidents, when you get your loved ones with heart attacks, if they don't die before getting to the hospitals, if these ambulances, many of them private, gets you to the hospital, you're likely going to have to sign your home away to pay the bill to get to the hospital 100 miles away. So you see, they're screwing you up front, and you'll be screwed again if you get hurt and have to be rushed to the hospital. And God forbid you have to use the helicopter, because at that point, you probably also lose your form. Folks, look, I can't express this in more detail. Jasmine Crockett nailed it. Yes, it's going to affect the rural hospitals. Chris Hayes nailed it. Where the hell is the hospital lobby? And what I'm telling you is they've done their cost analysis and they figured, to hell with the rural hospitals. To hell with them. You guys are the ones who need the Medicaid more than anyone else. And since the Medicaid doesn't pay as much as we can in the city, to hell with it. The tax cut will more than make up any tiny profit, if any, we would have made in those rural hospitals. And then the real estate from that rural hospital, that still has some value. So that stays on the books as value for the person or the entity who once held that hospital. All I can say is, my rural brothers and sisters, my red state brothers and sisters, you better get with the program because your own is coming for you. Your own is coming for you. They don't give a damn about you. And I'm looking at some of the folks in the chat. I don't know where your mind is. Some of you who are, what about, can you keep your doctor, all of that? Look, we're talking in the aggregate here. And you're talking simplistic buffoonery. simplistic buffoonery. As people that are needing are screwed by these policies. It is simply abhorrent how some of you think, my dear brothers and sisters. But you know what? It's amazing that you allow your prejudice to do what it does to you. Donald Trump as the liar in chief, folks. I want to put something out real quick like. This video is important, the last one. And what gets me is the media doesn't call it out. You know, Donald Trump comes out and he says, hey, guess what? Under Biden, we had the highest inflation rates we've ever had. I mean, like I said, these people think you're dumb because it's not hard to find the real answers. It's never hard to find the real answers when they lie to you, but they simply think you're dumb. And Donald Trump did it today again. Donald Trump did it today again. I want you to listen to this and we'll take it on the other side.
We have, I think we're 38th now in interest, and we should be number one. We should be the lowest. But, and by the way, if he's worried about inflation, that's okay. I understand that. I don't think there's going to be any. So far, there hasn't. I mean, we have almost no inflation. We've done a great job. When I came in, we had a lot of inflation. We went through 4 years of the highest inflation in the history of our country with Sleepy Joe Biden. And Sleepy Joe. And he didn't know what the hell he was doing. And so we had the highest inflation we've ever had in the history of our country. And then it came down because when I got elected, it started dropping because people understood that I knew what I was doing. But now we have a man that just refuses to lower the Fed rate, just refuses to do it. And he's not a smart person. I don't even think he's that. I think he hates me.
All right, let's be clear. The highest inflation rate was 29.78%. Okay? 29.78%, and that was in 1778. In 1917, it was 20.49. During the I think it was during Reagan, it was higher right after Carter came out of power, etc. So the most important thing that I want folks to see there is that there was no pushback at all. No pushback at all from the media. And that is why we are left with an American population that is so misinformed. 1969, let me put it on the screen. Why not? Put it on the screen. 1969, 9%. 1978, 10%. 1979, 12%. 1980, 12%. So look, we can look at all these numbers. I was reading the wrong thing. The inflation rate is what I should be reading. 1946, 18.1. All right. Keeping up. 79, 13.3. 1978, 9%. Oh, it's not on the screen. Come on, get on the screen, guys. Get on the screen. 1982, or I should go back to let's see. So he's simply lying and no pushback at all. So again, don't forget 74, 12.3, 1979, 13.3, 1980, 12.5, all of them higher. But he says Biden had at 9%, Biden had the highest inflation rate we ever had. And a lot of folks are going to hear that and they're going to continue to believe that crap. And then what you think happens? That misinformation gets inculcated into their minds. And then what? They continue to vote against their own interests. People, we have to get smart. Sorry that it's too small to see, my friend. Sorry for that. All right. Look, we're at the end of the show. There's so much that we went over today. Just, like I said, there's so much happening and I wanted to bring all of this out today. But I want to tell you guys that I hope, first of all, please remember to share what we've discussed here. Please share the videos. Please share the newsletters, all of that. It's important for us to flood the zone. It's very important for us to flood the zone. There are two a lot of folks, you come here, we learn some stuff and, you are informed, but we can be the media where you can inform everybody else. And I hope that you do. Share our stuff, please. And likewise, if you have the wherewithal to do so, the way we fund what we're doing is through our newsletter. And I want to ask those of you who have the wherewithal to please become paid subscribers of our newsletter. That is the only way we are going to make it. That's the only way we are going to be able to continue doing this indefinitely, which we must do. We must do this because the mainstream media won't. And how can you help? Let me put that on the screen, Michael Radnin. I'll put it on the screen for you real quickly. How can you help? You can help by, let's see, invest. Is that it? Yeah. All right. Thank you, my brother. That's the screen thing that you wanted. There we go. Egberto had to think the link on the screen is, yeah, right. All right. Anyway, folks, please support the program however you can. Again, being a paid subscriber of our newsletter is the preferred way. And let me go ahead and put that. Let's get to that screen, and then I can get all of that placed in there. Becoming a paid subscriber ensures that we can continue doing this, and we do a lot more from TikTok to Instagram. We make sure all this stuff is out there. So please become a paid subscriber if you can. It will really allow us to keep putting the message out. And we have a lot of work to do between now and actually November. There are several elections that are occurring in November that we better win. Virginia is one that we have to win. And there are a few other places that we must win. We have to start taking back that which was taken away. Help us do that. Again, the newsletter is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Please become a paid subscriber to get out of here. Thank you so kindly. Love you all. You can send me direct email at info@politicsdoneright.com, info@politicsdoneright.com. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.